Dear Grace, still can't do this live. Eventually I'll be able to. Just the technology reason, not the physical aspect. However, maybe what I'll do is I'll do both. I'll do this one and the live one on the comedy cult once I start writing that again. Needed a break, I guess, Grace. However, the good news is, thanks to global English editing, there's lots more lists for me to go through, figure out what type of person I am. We did that Netflix one a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why it's in my feed, but anyway. One day, Grace. It's going to be another noisy one. No apologies. People who are really difficult to be around often exhibit these 8 behaviors without realizing it, according to psychology. AI could write these so easily, Grace, but then I wouldn't be entertained, so I have to thank Lachlan again. Every fucking day. It's pumping out the words, Lachlan. If that's your real name. Look at you, Grace. I made up an entire person in my head. How hard would it for AI to make up a Lachlan Brown? I'm just saying, Grace. You ready? It's a fact of life. We all encounter people who are difficult to be around. Often they're not even fully aware of their behaviors that make them so challenging. According to psychology, there are specific patterns these individuals tend to exhibit, which can make interacting with a real test of patience. Agreed. In this article, we're taking a closer look at these behaviors, 8 in total, which people who are notoriously difficult to be around tend to display without often realizing it. Understanding these patterns can provide us with the insight needed to navigate these tricky relationships more effectively. Let's get started. That's why I wear a t-shirt, Grace, that says, I speak fluent sarcasm. And then that way people know that whatever I'm saying is sarcastic. And then they shouldn't take it at face value. So far it hasn't worked. One time with the doctor, but other than that, never. People don't read. Oops, that sounds negative. 1. Constant negativity. We all have our days off, but when someone is persistently negative, it can be draining to be around them. Psychology suggests that individuals who are chronically negative tend to view the world through a pessimistic lens, which colors their interactions and relationships. This isn't just about expressing dissatisfaction or venting about bad days. It's a pervasive mindset that can seep into every conversation and interaction. When you're around someone who is constantly negative, it can feel like you're being sucked into a vortex of negativity. This can be exhausting. It can make the person difficult to be around. Let me just figure out why they're being so negative. To me, it seems like that would be the easier thing to do than all this other stuff I was about to suggest. In my opinion, Grace. It's also worth noting that often these individuals may not even realize they're doing it. They might see themselves as simply being realistic or pragmatic without realizing how their negativity impacts those around them. See? Maybe they are just realistic. Understanding this pattern can help us approach these individuals with empathy rather than frustration, and even help them see the impact of their behavior. The impact of their behavior. That's what psychology is really worried about. They don't give a fuck about uniqueness or anything else. Just how does it make me feel? Boo, I control your feelings. Oops, that sounds overbearing and controlling. I guess I am. Here's something I've personally experienced. People who feel the need to control everything. I had a friend who always had to call the shots. From choosing the restaurant where we could eat to deciding which movie we should watch. It's always about what they wanted. I'm pretty sure he's used that reference before, but that's okay. I'm sure his friend doesn't mind. I shouldn't be analyzing his writing like this, but I got nothing better to do, Grace. This is my job now. It's a critic of list, a list critic. That sounds a little overbearing and trolling too. Be the first of my kind. This kind of behavior, reading lists, can be incredibly suffocating. It feels like your opinions and preferences don't matter, and that can be really hard to deal with. Well, actually, this works perfect because I get to say my exact preferences and opinions, and someone doesn't like it, too fucking bad. I think this is the best therapy ever. Talk therapy to nobody, or everybody, anonymously. My opinion, Grace. I'm pretty sure Tabitha agrees with me. Psychology attributes this behavior to a deep-seated need for control. Often these individuals might feel insecure or anxious, and controlling their environments, including the people in it, provides them with a sense of security. I'm not insecure, I'm not anxious, but I am bored, which also comes out as anxiety. Well, that's really just impatience. But what the fuck do I know? But being on the receiving end of this behavior can be very frustrating. You start feeling like a puppet, and that's not a healthy dynamic for any relationship. The worst part? They may not even realize you're doing it. It's just their way of managing their world. Number 3, frequent interruptions. Well, that doesn't sound like me at all. I just read these out continually without stopping. Frequent interruptions. Picture this. You're deep in conversation, sharing a story or expressing an opinion, and then bam, you're interrupted. It's not just once or twice, a recurring pattern. People who frequently interrupt others often do so without realizing the negative impact it has on those around them. This behavior can make others feel unheard and undervalued, leading to strained relationships. Sounds horrible. Psychology explains that the interrupting is often a sign of impatience, lack of respect, or even desire for dominance in conversation. Like, just fucking explain that. It's just impatience. It's not lack of respect. If they're just talking about boring shit, then interrupt. Talk about something interesting. Makes perfect sense to me. I don't know what the problem is. I think I'm going to start writing these lists, Grace. Maybe once a day off. I'll steal David Letterman's idea of the top 10 list, which I've tried before in the past. Never could do consistently. But I do have an account on one of the AIs now, so maybe I'll... Ooh, I should get the AI to do the top 10 moments from the previous podcast, because these are so exciting. And then I could read that out in the next podcast and then just build it and build it and build it. How does that sound, Grace? Helpful idea? Does that sound overly controlling too? Or non-stop complaining? Which is it, Grace? Dale Carnegie's renowned book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Maybe I should read that. He emphasizes the importance of effective listening in building strong relationships. Constant interruptions are a clear breach of this principle, making it difficult for meaningful conversations to take place. When you notice somebody constantly breaking into your sentences, it's not just an annoying habit, it's an impediment to effective communication and relationship building. Yeah, that'd be a little annoying. Non-stop complaining. We all know someone like this. No matter what happens, they always seem to have something to complain about. Whether it's the weather, their job, or the traffic on the way to work, these individuals have turned complaining into an art form. True. That's why The Office was a success. According to psychology, chronic complainers often feel a sense of dissatisfaction with their lives. Their constant complaints are a way of externalizing this dissatisfaction. However, this incessant negativity can be very difficult to be around. It can create a toxic environment that leaves you feeling drained and downcast. Yeah, it's called office work. or any work. Often these individuals don't realize the toll their complaining takes on those around them. They might see it as simply expressing their feelings or being honest about their experiences. Well, that would be horrible. Ugh. Don't be honest about your experience. But understanding this behavior can help us be more patient and empathetic when dealing with chronic complainers, and maybe even help them find more constructive ways to express their feelings. Getting drunk. 5. Lack of empathy. There's something profoundly disheartening about interacting with someone who lacks empathy. Empathy, what's that? The ability to understand and share the feelings of others is a cornerstone of human connection. It's the glue that binds us together and makes us care for each other. As some people struggle with this, they find it hard to put themselves in others' shoes or show understanding when someone else is going through a tough time. According to psychology, let's just rewrite this and just say according to AI. One thing AI is pretty good at is if you copy and paste this in there and say, give me an alternative argument, pretty good at finding it. Just saying, Grace. I'm not going to do that right now, but wait for all these applause breaks, blah, blah, blah. All right. Back to the show. Grace. Must be a snake. Grace. Name like Grace. Dealing with someone who lacks empathy can be deeply frustrating and hurtful. It can feel like you're talking to a brick wall, your feelings bouncing off without making any impact. I'm sitting in front of a brick wall, Grace. Do you want to see? Not brick per se, but brick-like. Stone wall, brick wall, whatever. Really sad part, Grace. The really sad part, aside from the constant interruptions by the train, is many people who lack empathy don't realize their deficit. They're not intentionally being cold or uncaring. They simply struggle to connect on an emotional level. Constant one-upmanship. I'm so much better than you, Grace. So obvious. You ever been in a conversation where someone always has a bigger, better story to share? Yes, me. I'm always going to have the last word, Grace, and the biggest story. Just letting you know right now. That's what your life is going to be like. Always going to be number 2. If you can download. Alrighty. You mentioned a great book you've read, and they've read something more profound. You share your travel experiences, and they've been to more exotic places. Motherfuckers. I hate people like that. This constant one-upmanship can be exhausting. It feels like you're in a never-ending competition where your experiences and achievements are perpetually overshadowed. Psychology suggests that individuals engaging in constant one-upmanship often do so out of insecurity. They feel the need to prove their worth and establish their superiority, and they do this by always trying to outdo others. The fucking irony, Grace, is that this behavior often pushes people away rather than drawing them closer. It can make interactions feel superficial and competitive rather than genuine and enriching. How about this? Most of psychology is just talking about how people are not being honest with each other. Except for the autistic guys who are honest with everyone, but then they're called everything under the sun. For now. One-upmanship might make these individuals feel better about themselves in the short term, but in the long run, it can damage relationships and make them difficult to be around. Sounding a lot like me, Grace. I think maybe you should just run and hide. Number 7, unreliability. Absolutely. We all have moments when we drop the ball. Maybe we forget a meeting, arrive late, or fail to meet a deadline. When this becomes a pattern, it can be incredibly frustrating for those around us. People who say it's not about the person, it's for everything about the people around. Psychology wants everyone to be a bunch of minions. Act the exact same way, say the exact same words, just be non-player characters. I think it's because they're all emotionally weak. That should every single psychologist and psychiatrist out there. How's that for critical? Wait, are we critical? No, it's unreliable. Whatever. People who are constantly unreliable tend to break their promises, forget their commitments, and let others down on a regular basis. This lack of dependability can put a strain on relationships, both personal and professional. Psychology suggests that chronic unreliability can stem from a variety of factors, including poor time management skills, lack of responsibility, or even underlying issues like ADHD. The problem is that these individuals often don't realize the negative impact of their behavior. The problem is that these individuals often don't realize the negative impact of their behavior. They may see themselves as laid back or spontaneous, without considering how their unreliability affects others. People do not sound very good, Grace. Excessive criticism. I'm not critical about anything or anyone, Grace, other than psychology. The idiots who think they know everything about it. Luckily, I'm uneducated, so I can say whatever I want. And nobody can prove me wrong. Because if you don't go by their research, they have no proof. Whereas if they had something like Tabitha, which actually gathered all this information and put it together in some sort of professional manner, not sort of the way psychologists do it, however the fuck that is. Like, what did they do? They have a meeting once a year and decide what new things are going to add to the DSM-5? Which hasn't been updated for a while because it's bullshit anyways. Okay, maybe I do criticize a little bit, Grace, but not much. I wouldn't call that excessive. It's not like I'm calling them a bunch of cunts or anything. That would be excessive. This is just normal criticism. Like, do your fucking job. If it doesn't work, try something new. Think outside the fucking box. How long have people been saying that? Grace. Anyways, lastly, and perhaps most importantly, people who are excessively critical can be very difficult to be around. These individuals have a knack for finding faults in everything, from the food they eat to the people they interact with. Nothing ever seems good enough for them. Psychology suggests that individuals who are overly critical often struggle with their own self-esteem. They project their insecurities onto others, using criticism as a defense mechanism. Maybe it's my fault, not the psychologist's fault, that they're not doing what they should be doing. This behavior can be extremely destructive. It can erode self... Oh, motherfucker. It can erode self-confidence and create a negative environment. The key here is to remember that their criticism says more about them than it does about you. Maybe, maybe not. And understanding that can make it a little easier to cope when you're on the receiving end of their critique. Or just take it with a big ass grain of salt. Final reflection, it's all part of the human condition. Then why the fuck do we have to list it out like this? This is all normal? As Carl Jung once said, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Understanding these behaviors isn't about labeling or distancing ourselves from these individuals, but about fostering empathy and kindness in our interactions. making it sound like they're a bunch of fucking children. I think that's the problem. Psychologists think their parents, they're all a bunch of their children. It doesn't work like that. As we continue our journey through life's myriad relationships, big ass applause break. Is this legal? Elon Musk questions UBC hiring practices. Oh, the fuck does Elon care about UBC? Yeah, it sounds like racism. The job's out there, everyone should have a chance to apply. Just my opinion, Grace. Of course, I'm highly opinionated, according that people are difficult to be around, so. How mirrors and photos modify your self-perception. Interesting. ICBC ordered to pay $15,000 each to members of households that had data breached. Ooh. Should check and see if my data was breached. I might be able to get 15 grand. The brain can store nearly 10 times more data than previously thought. Study confirms. Why did it take so long to figure that out, Grace? Tell me. Surely there's people out there with photographic memories and whatnot that could have proven that a long time ago, Grace. Know your source. Rage Tool unveils ChatGPT's sources. 3 high-income skills you can learn for free in 2024. A new way to read the crystal ball for your relationship. I think we better do this, Grace. Just so you know what it's going to be like. I think it's going to be wonderful. Might be a little rocky to start with, we'll see. A new way to read the crystal ball for your relationship. I should ask the AI to check the speed of my speech. And there's no applause breaks. Make a note, Grace. Alright. The $64,000 question about relationships and their future is always, and will always be, whether they will survive the test of time. You may be in a relationship now that seems to be going well, but how will you know what to expect as you ponder the coming years? The considered wisdom in relationship research is that the initial glow is destined to fail no matter what. This belief was challenged when long-term studies showed that there is no one distinct pathway that characterizes all couples. Follow-ups of married couples first studied as newlyweds indicate that whatever a relationship looked like in the early stages would most likely continue as time went by. Disagree. I think it can change anytime, anywhere, any place. See? A new way to look at relationship dynamics. I'm not even going to read it because I already know I'm right. How's that for arrogant? Grace. X says free speech has prevailed after e-safety commissioner drops case over Walkley Church. It's good. I tell you, YouTube has some good stuff on it recently about bad cops, bad judges, bad people in power. That's what X should be used for, and Substack. Just my opinion, Grace. Don't mind. Oh, here we go. Self-centered. If it wasn't for this site, let's see, will it be Lachlan or Tina? Oh, Lachlan again. He's just pumping out left and right. It's almost like he's taking these from somewhere else and rewriting them. Just say. Probably isn't, if he's even real. There's a fine line between self-confidence and self-centeredness. The distinction often lies in the language we use and the tone. I have to read outside, Grace. I need the fresh air. Fresh air, coffee, and talking, I guess. That's how you wake me up, Grace. Just be careful on that third one. Third one. Known to be a little bit grumpy in the morning sometimes. Don't feel too bad today, though. 17% battery. I have to end this one early, Grace. I'll read faster. Self-centered people have an knack for making everything about them, often without realizing it. Their conversation is peppered with phrases that subtly place them at the center of everything. As a keen observer of human behavior, which I am, Grace, I really am. Watch first, participate second. Rule number 1. Dave's top 10 list today. Stolen from David Letterman. He provided me hours of entertainment for decades. The least I can do is steal his work. As a sign of respect, of course. Not just because I'm too lazy to do something unique myself. Really should get some nuts and feed the squirrel. But then I'll feel bad for not feeding the rat. Ready, Grace? Do I have ADHD? Am I slightly distracted? What are we learning here? Oh, self-centered, okay. Blah, 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 blah. It's not about me, not about me, not about me. Let's dive into 10 phrases only self-centered people use according to psychology. Enough about you, let's talk about me. Absolutely. That's why I don't even have anyone else on this podcast, because it would just slow it down. It has to be about me. Enough about you, Grace. Let's talk about me. Now, this might not be said verbatim, but self-centered assholes, individuals, have a unique way of steering conversations back to themselves. It's all about them, their experiences, their achievements. Even when the conversation starts with you or someone else, it inevitably circles back to them. Psychology tells us this is a classic trait of self-centered people. They use language as tools to focus attention on themselves. They're often oblivious to the interests and feelings of others in the conversation. This phrase, or similar versions of it, is a clear indicator of a self-centered mindset. It's a subtle way of saying, I'm more important. When you're in a conversation with NBDD, when you're in a conversation and notice it being redirected towards one person consistently, pay attention. You might be dealing with a self-centered individual. I would never do that, Grace. I would never do that. Self-centered individuals often view their actions and decisions as superior to others. Let me share, I definitely don't consider this podcast superior to anyone. You'd probably go out and maybe buy a microphone or something, but no, I won't. Let me share a personal anecdote. I had a friend, let's call him Mark. See, Lachlan always has a friend. It's amazing. Every single article, he just has a friend that he just perfectly put in there. Either he's talking a lot about his friends behind their back, which I don't think psychology would approve of, or some of these friends maybe are not really friends at all. Just saying, Grace. Let me share a personal anecdote. I had a friend, let's call him Mark, who had a knack for making everything about his choices and decisions. For instance, when discussing our weekend plans, I once mentioned that I was considering going camping. Mark instantly responded with, "I would never do that. It's too uncomfortable and dirty." Well, good, Mark, because he didn't fucking invite you. Instead of engaging in the conversation, or showing interest in my plans, Mark immediately dismissed the idea based on his preferences. I think that's just right. This phrase is a common tool in the self-centered person's arsenal. It subtly communicates an inherent belief that their choices are superior, dismissing others' preferences as inferior or misguided. So I guess you just want Mark to get down on his knees and say, "That's fucking amazing that you're going camping. Can't support you enough." I certainly think psychologists all have some weird inferiority complex. Ha. Just gonna use their labels back on them, Grace. I'm just being honest. This phrase is often used as a justification for making harsh or critical comments. Self-centered people have a tendency to share unsolicited opinions and then hide behind the shield of honesty. It's a way for them to voice their views without considering feelings or perspectives of others. Research in psychology shows that self-centered individuals often struggle with empathy, which can manifest in such blunt communication styles. They might genuinely believe they're just being straightforward, not realizing the impact the words have on others. While honesty is undoubtedly, while honesty is doubted. You think, Grace? I think this would be easier by now. While honesty is absolutely a virtue, it should never be used as an excuse to disregard the feelings and perspectives of others. Unless you do it online, then it's fine because nobody knows who you are. Just saying, Grace. Elon can talk about the UBC, I can talk about anything. Especially since no one's listening. Makes it a lot easier. And it still works. Where are we at? Getting around on battery today, Grace. Phone battery. I don't need anyone else. Self-centered individuals often project an image of independence to the extreme. They frequently use phrases like, "I don't need anyone else," or "I can do it by myself." Doesn't sound like me, Grace. This isn't just about self-reliance or independence, two traits which can be quite admirable. Instead, it's a way of asserting their self-importance and dismissive attitude towards the contributions and needs of others. Boy, they really like to turn this shit around, don't they? Instead, it could be a way of asserting their self-importance and dismissive attitude towards control of others. Doesn't mean it is. Possibility. Who knows? In their world, they are a central character and everyone else is merely a supporting role. This phrase underscores their belief that they are fully sufficient and don't require help, support, or input from others. Or maybe they don't. Healthy relationships are built on mutual dependence and respect. This phrase is often a red flag indicating an imbalance in these aspects. No offense there, Lachlan. This one's kind of shit. This phrase is a classic one in the self-centered person's vocabulary. It's often used as a precursor to an offensive or critical statement. It works like a disclaimer, as if by saying "no offense," they're absolved of the responsibility for the potentially harmful comment that follows. Psychology tells us that this kind of language is a common tactic used by self-centered individuals to express their thoughts without considering the feelings of others. It's a way for them to say what they want without having to deal with the repercussions of their words. When you hear "no offense, but" be prepared, it's often a clear sign that a self-centered statement is coming your way. Be prepared, Grace. Be prepared. You wouldn't understand. This phrase can be quite hurtful. It's a way for self-centered people to put up walls and create distance. By saying "you wouldn't understand," they're not just dismissing others' ability to empathize, but also placing their experience and emotions above everyone else's. In doing this, they isolate themselves, but also imply that their feelings, experience, or problems are unique and more significant than those of others. This isn't just about self-centered, it's about lacking emotional intelligence. Understanding empathy are two-way streets, and this phrase effectively shuts down that road. If you hear this phrase, remember it's not your inability to understand, it's about their unwillingness to share or connect on a deeper level. So in other words, it's always their fault in psychology. They say don't label and then they label. What a bunch of fucking... I don't care. This is a phrase I often heard from an old acquaintance. How old is this Lachlan guy? Got friends and old acquaintances? He didn't look that old. I'm just saying. He might not be real. At first, it seemed like a simple expression of disinterest. Over time, however, it became clear that this phrase was a mask for her self-centeredness. Oh, her. Well. Lachlan has a female friend. Lucky him. "I don't care" was her go-to response whenever she was asked for an opinion or to make a decision that didn't directly affect her. Well, I wouldn't care either if it didn't fucking directly affect me. It was as anything outside of her immediate interest or benefit was not worth her attention or consideration. Maybe she's thinking about other shit. Leave her alone, Lachlan. This phrase can be a clear indicator of self-centered behavior, signals a lack of interest in others' opinions, feelings, or experiences, unless they directly pertain to the person saying it. While we all have moments of apathy, a pattern of "I don't care" can suggest a deeper disregard for others' perspectives and feelings. "I'm the best at this." Well, I've never said that, Grace. You might think this phrase is about self-confidence, but there's more to it when it comes to a self-centered person. "I'm the best at this" is more than just pride in one's ability. It's a declaration that they're not only good, but they're better than everyone else. It's a subtle put-down, implying that others are somehow less capable or inferior. This statement is often used to feed their ego and reinforce their self-centered worldview. That's what I'm doing, feeding my ego, Grace. While confidence is healthy and important, consistently asserting superiority over others is a classic sign of self-centered behavior. When someone says, "I'm the best at this," take a moment and consider it. It's a display of self-confidence or a sign of something more. Why is this always happening to me? You ever notice how some individuals have a knack for making every situation about them? This phrase is a perfect example of that. "Why is this always happening to me" is often used by self-centered individuals when they face adversity instead of looking at the situation objectively or empathizing with others involved. They make it all about themselves. This phrase indicates a self-centered perspective and lack of awareness or concern for others. It's a way of playing the victim and seeking attention, even when the situation involves others in equal or greater measure. Well, he gets a lot out of just one little sentence. "Why is this always happening to me?" He writes a whole fucking book about it. But enough about you. If there's one phrase that captures the essence of self-centered behavior, it's this one. But enough about you. It's a clear, almost textbook sign of self-centered individuals. It's their way of shifting the focus from others back onto themselves. This phrase is indicative of their primary interest, themselves. It highlights their lack of genuine interest in others' lives or experiences. These guys sound like cunts. In conversations, genuine engagement involves a balance between talking and listening. This phrase disrupts that balance. It's a clear signal that the person you're conservatively sorry, I gotta end it, Grace. Dead battery. Talk to you tomorrow.